because it may be different at the end of this. So I'm going to go a little off script today because I am here to talk about that. But first, I want to thank you. Here we go. I want to thank you, and also I'm not used to standing behind a podium. I'm used to walking out here, but since that's there, I guess I'm stuck right here. Anyhow, I want to thank you for what it is you guys do day in and day out to improve and possibly even save the lives of people you may not know. And the reason I say that at the very beginning is I have a personal story. My brother-in-law, Ryan, in November of 2020, he almost died from COVID. Except that on the day before Thanksgiving, we were able to, by some series of miracles, we were able to get him an ECMO machine from New Jersey, flown down to Shreveport, Louisiana, and get him on that machine just minutes before he passed away. He did not pass away, he lived. And that machine saved his life and saved countless others since then. So I have a personal affinity for what it is you guys do day in and day out. So I wanted to start off by saying thank you and kind of go off script there, so forgive me. Let's get into this. I'm here to talk about developing high-performing leaders and high-performing teams through preparedness, resilience, and grit. And you're probably thinking, well, what about all those other leadership attributes I learned about in school? Focus, courage, integrity, honesty, all those. I believe in all those. I believe those are fantastic leadership traits. But I also believe those fall into these four buckets. If you're prepared, you're resilient, you have grit, and you have compassion, you're going to have courage. You're going to have integrity. You're going to have a vision. I'm going to bob and weave into and out of those, and there's going to be times when what I'm talking about may not seem at all related to the overall topic, but believe me, I will tie it back in. So with that all said, I want you to stop. Stop what you're doing right now. If you're on your phones, if you're writing something down, stop. And focus on one thing that is causing you anxiety, stress, or even sadness right now. Think about that. It might be personal, it might be professional, it might be financial, families. I don't know what it might be, but think about that one thing. And as you're doing so, notice what your body is doing. Probably similar to what my body is doing, standing up in front of a crowd. My heart rate is increased. My hands are sweating. Got some tension in my forehead, tension in my shoulders. Don't worry, we're gonna do away with that here in a second. I'm not just here to stress you all out. So next, what I want you to do is take a deep breath in and let that out, nice and slow. And as you do so, pay attention to the physical sensations of the breath. Pay attention to where the air is entering your body. Another deep breath in, ideally through your nose, paying attention to the air at the tips of your nostrils. Breathe that out, nice and slow. Pay attention to the contracting of your lungs, belly, chest, as you breathe out. And one more. Nice deep breath in. And on this one, let out a nice audible sigh. I want to hear it. Come on. All right, there we go. All right, now why did I do that? One, to calm me down. So I appreciate it. So thanks for bearing with me. Second off, I wanted to show you what your body does when it's perceiving a threat. Your sympathetic nervous system, and many of you guys know this way better than I, you guys being in the healthcare service, but your sympathetic nervous system kicks in. Your heart rate increases, your respiratory rate increases. It's there to protect you from threats. Threats like an attacker, a bear. But what we perceive as threats these days are social media notifications, messages on our phones, traffic, rough relationships. And while these are all stressful indeed, they're most likely not life-threatening. The other side of what I showed you there was you tapping into your parasympathetic nervous system. That's you calming yourself down. That's your rest and digest nervous system. That is the nervous system that is allowing you to respond rather than react. And you can do what we just did just about anywhere. You can do it when standing in front of a group of people. Calm yourself down. It can really make a difference in what it is you're experiencing and how you react or respond in your daily life. It can also really make a difference in how others respond to you as a leader or as part of a team. That mindfulness that we just did, that is mindfulness, paying attention to what your body does, that ties into this preparedness, resilience, grit, and compassion. It's a key component that is common among all four. So that's another reason I do it. And the last reason is to get you guys focused on the presentation at hand, because as a presenter, I want you to pay attention to what I'm talking about. So that's that. All right. Susan did a quick intro on who I am. I won't go much further into that, but I'll just cover briefly. I was born in Cape Town, South Africa, raised in Ruston, Louisiana. I enlisted in the Navy first, then got picked up for the Naval Academy, went into the SEAL teams, and 20 plus years later, I now teach meditation. It's not your typical warfighter transition. So I'll explain why I got there. This will also not be the last time you see meditation mentioned in this presentation, nor the last slide you will see with meditation on it. So the reason I got into meditation was I dealt with my own anxiety, stress, depression, survivor's guilt, imposter syndrome, you name it, I dealt with it in the SEAL teams. And I sought counseling for it. I self-medicated for a lot of it. And I got prescribed medication for it. And those helped to a point, but they never helped to truly heal me. Until one day I went to a counselor and he sat me down and he asked me all the medications that I was on, officially and unofficially. I told him and he said, okay, well, let's see what we can get you off of. And I was like, well, what are we gonna do? He's like, well, I'm gonna get you on mindfulness and meditation. I stared at him, I was like, what? Yeah, mindfulness and meditation, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get you on meditation instead of medication. And I laughed at him. I was like, Doc, I've got some serious stuff going on. I don't know what it is you're trying to teach me here. I don't believe in meditation. Meditation, mindfulness is for hippies, monks, and weirdos. I'm kind of this badass guy. I don't know what you're trying to teach me. Well, one, I was way off. Two, he introduced me to the science, the data, the physiology behind it, which as a math and operations research guy, that initially got me interested. And then he told me about the performance enhancing aspects of it. And as a special operator, you're always looking for an edge, whether that's an edge over your enemy on the battlefield or an edge over your buddy right next to you. You're always looking for an edge. So I was sold. Oh, yeah, give me whatever that is, Doc. I'll take that in a pill or I'll take that as meditation, sure. So I started meditating and I started to see the differences in my life. And I was actually able to come off all those medications that I was on. About 3 months later, I felt better than I ever had. Or not better than I ever had, but better than I had up until that point. I was back where I felt I needed to be. So that's why I teach mindfulness and meditation. That's why I'm here right now, right here with you all, and to talk about how that all ties into being a better leader and a better team. But this wouldn't be a SEAL presentation if I didn't tell you something about Navy SEAL training. I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen Navy SEAL speeches before. You've read all the books that are out there. Admittedly, there are tons of them. We all go through this. This is basic underwater demolition SEAL training. It's a 6-month weeding out course. It's divided into 3 phases. The first phase is basic conditioning phase. That's basically where we wash everyone out that doesn't want to be a SEAL. Second phase is dive phase, which, as the name implies, you learn the basics behind diving. Third phase is land warfare phase, where you learn to shoot, move, and communicate, and blow stuff up, which is a lot of fun. Now, BUD/S is in Coronado, California, which as you can see in this picture, is beautiful and sunny, but the instructors have a way of making it hell. During all phases, you're pushed to your limits, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. You run around with these inflatable boats on your heads. You run around with logs, giant logs, for physical training. You wear yourself out. You go on very little sleep. You start hallucinating. There were times that when I thought that I was going to run into a bridge, and there was nothing there, no bridge at all. And it wouldn't have even made sense that there would be a bridge there, but for some reason I thought there was. We hallucinated. So that's BUDS, more on that in a bit. But let's get into talking about preparedness, resilience, grit, and compassion. Preparedness. Coast Guard logo, Coast Guard motto, Semper Paratus, is always ready. My wife was in the Coast Guard before she joined the Navy, a decision she regrets until she met me in the Navy. But I digress. Always ready. That is preparedness. In BUDS, basic underwater demolition SEAL training, one of the things you go through multiple times a week is some form of inspection, whether that's a room inspection, a uniform inspection, or even inspection of your knife to see whether it's sharp. And the inspection for that is literally to take the knife and see if it will shave the hair on your arms. If it will, you're good to go. If not, stand by. The instructors are going to make your life hell. Either way, you've got to be prepared. You've got to be prepared for the inspection or the consequence. And these inspections, they prepared us for the SEAL teams, and then they prepared us for life afterwards. I felt this just after a decade and a half later as I lay on the waiting room floor at Boston Children's Hospital. 3 weeks prior to that, my wife and I had been told that our 6-month-old had a massive tumor in her liver, and she would need that removed or she wouldn't live. The surgeon told us, we're going to have to break your little perfect China doll. I can tell you, the battlefield is scary, but I've never been as scared as I was there. Lying helpless while my 6-month-old was operated in a few hundred feet away. But I can tell you that the training that I went through, the training that my wife went through in the military, prepared us for that and prepared us for the uncertainty that came afterwards. I'm happy to say my daughter is now a flourishing 5-year-old and is a complete handful that stresses me out to the max, but I love her to death. She's doing well. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, great, so you and your wife had military training. That helped you to get prepared. Well, preparedness doesn't necessarily or exclusively come through military training. It comes through training in your discipline, whatever that might be, training in your craft, training often, and then training when you want to and when you don't, and then training specifically when things go wrong, intentionally injecting things that go wrong in your training. Plan on people getting sick. Plan on supplies not being there. Plan on machines not working. Plan on computers not connecting correctly. All right? Plan on that because it's going to happen. So, meditation. Meditation can help with preparedness. What it does in regard to preparedness is it helps you to think clearly. It helps you to know what you have on hand, know what your strengths are, what your team's strengths are, know what your weaknesses are, and what your team's weaknesses are. Meditation can help in developing your preparedness. What I hear often about preparedness is, I don't have the time for that kind of training. Well, a lot of the time, we have more time than we think. We all go home and we doom scroll on social media. We binge the latest Netflix series. What I encourage people to do when they tell me that they don't have time is to do a time audit. Find out where and how you're spending your time. You probably have more time than you think. The other thing that I see often is that people think they are fully prepared. They think they know everything. They don't want to ask questions. They've got that fixed mindset. They can't grow. They don't want to embarrass themselves in front of their team. They want to be the smartest person in the room. The flip side of that is the growth mindset. That's where we want our leaders to be. That's where we want our teams to be. Asking questions, always learning, wanting to improve themselves and improve their teams. If you run into somebody with a fixed mindset, if you run into a team with a fixed mindset, I encourage you to run as fast as you can in the opposite direction, because they're the most dangerous people out there. In my profession, they get people killed. In your profession, they get people killed. Run away. Finally, when it comes to preparedness, one must learn from the past, live in the present, and plan for the future. So do some mental time travel, if you will. The past, learn from it. Learn from it, but don't live in it. Reminisce, but don't ruminate. Use your past to make your present and your future and the present and the future of others better. The present, live in it. That's the only real thing. The past is gone, the future's not here yet. The present, live in it, enjoy it, relish it, the here and now. And the future, plan for it. Plan for it, but don't worry about it. Two different things. Planning for it and worrying about it. Next, let's talk about resilience. Resilience is defined as the ability to recover quickly from setback or adversity. Sure, that's the definition. I looked it up before I came in here. But that doesn't help a whole lot. Does anyone know who this is? Buster Douglas. I think that's the first time I've ever asked and someone actually knew. That's Buster Douglas. Buster Douglas was a boxer in the 80s and 90s, and in 1990, he fought Mike Tyson. The odds in that fight were 42-1 in Tyson's favor. This was supposed to be a tune-up fight for Tyson as he went to go fight Evander Holyfield. Nobody expected Douglas to survive the fight. Never mind come back and win it. In the 8th round, Douglas was knocked down. The ref counted 7, 8, 9, 10. Except he didn't count 10. Douglas got up. On the count of 9, he got up. Nobody had ever done that before. Nobody had gotten back up after being knocked down by Tyson. Douglas not only got back up, but in the 10th round, knocked Mike Tyson down. The undisputed world heavyweight champ, knocked out. That's resilience. He is the definition of resilience. Getting knocked down, then coming back, and not only coming back, but coming back to win. Going back to buds. Yes, this is a picture of the Super Bowl. Trust me, I'm going to tie it to buds. So this is Super Bowl 36, Patriots versus the Rams, February 3rd, 2002. Super Bowl Sunday. This was also the kickoff of our Hell Week at Buds. We gathered as a class at the compound to watch this and eat pizza, which we thought was a great idea before Hell Week. But we learned soon after the game that was a terrible idea because we saw that pizza again, 2 or 3 times after. So what happened after the game, the instructors told us, okay, gents, we're going to let you get a couple hours of sleep. Go out to the tents, go out to the cots. And there's tents and cots that we had set up on the beach. And there's this giant berm of sand that separates the Buds compound from the ocean, from the Pacific Ocean. We go out to these tents. It's dark now. The game is over. We're all wondering when Hell Week's going to happen. The anticipation is there. We walk into our tents, and then all hell broke loose. We call it breakout. The instructors started throwing mock bombs, shooting machine guns, spraying us with water, having us do flutter kicks, push-ups, squats, anything they could that would make our life miserable. And it was just that. It was miserable. It lasted a few hours, that breakout, but that's the introduction to Hell Week. but it seems like it lasts forever. Fast forward 5 days, very little sleep, 3 hours, not 3 hours a night, but 3 hours total. We're on the other side of that same berm. Now it's nice and sunny. We've lost track of what day it was. The instructors kept telling us we were only on day 3. No idea where we were, what we were doing. And we have these things called whistle drills. They blow a whistle once, you get down, you put your hand over your head, cross your feet, and you open your mouth. That's supposed to simulate what you're supposed to do when a bomb hits. 2 whistles is you start crawling towards the ocean. 3 whistles, you stand up. We heard 2 whistles, so we got down, started crawling towards the ocean. We were miserable. We were sore. We had abrasions on our elbows, inside our thighs, on our knees from the salt and sand that had been rubbing on us all week long. Then we heard 3 whistles. Stand up, turn around. And what do we see? We see the most beautiful thing we had ever seen. At that point, the instructors and the commanding officer were standing on top of that berm with the red, white, and blue American flag. And we heard the words, "Buds Class 239, Hell Week is secured." Best words we had heard. We started Buds with 181 men. We started Hell Week with 108. We finished Hell Week with 24. I was surrounded by 23 of the most resilient men I've ever known. I still know them to this day. We're still friends with most of them. Some of them, unfortunately, have passed away on the battlefield. These men were knocked down through that week multiple times in multiple ways, but they got back up. They were stronger, and they were better for it. Better for it as SEALs, better for it as people. So, great story, bro. Thanks for that. Thanks for reminiscing on your Hell Week. What does that do for us? Not much. But what you can do to become resilient is go back to that first attribute, the preparedness. As you better prepare yourself, you're going to become more resilient. So plan for the future. Leverage that first attribute to become more resilient. But there's going to come times when the unforeseeable will happen. A pandemic will flip the world upside down. A hurricane will hit off the coast. Your house will get destroyed by a fire. I don't know, something unforeseeable is going to happen. You're in one of 3 phases in your life. You're either getting knocked down currently, you're getting back up from having been knocked down, or I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you're heading to get knocked down. So prepare for the unforeseeable. How do you do that? First, build faith in yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror. Say things to yourself like, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. If you don't get that reference, look up Stuart Smalley during your next break. But in all seriousness, I know this sounds silly and it looks ridiculous, but I did it this morning. I knew that I was coming in here to speak to an audience. That makes me nervous. It gets my heart rate up. I stood in the mirror and said, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, they're going to like me. But in all seriousness, it really does build faith in you. So do some positive affirmations, whether that's writing it down, saying it in the mirror, say those positive affirmations, write those positive affirmations. It builds faith in you. As you build faith in yourself, you become more resilient. I remember when I had gone from my small town in Ruston, Louisiana, a small school there, to Annapolis, Maryland, and went to the Naval Academy. If you guys know anything about the academies, there's a lot of very high-performing individuals there. I was not one of them. Or at least I didn't think I was. My grades were mediocre at best. I was failing calculus, I was failing chemistry, and I wasn't the best athlete. I had gone from being a big fish in a small pond to being that small proverbial fish in the huge ocean. Or at least that's what I was telling myself, right? Literally, I was telling myself the story that I wasn't good enough to be there. I had that imposter syndrome, which is common amongst many high-performing individuals. I imagine with the group of high-performing individuals I'm staring at here, we've got several who have that. Well, I just made a decision. I made a decision, hey, look, I don't listen to what other people say about me. Why am I going to listen to the negative thoughts that I tell myself about myself? So I literally decided to stop doing that and went back to those positive affirmations, started staring myself in the mirror, and started telling myself positive things, started journaling about it, started doing the positive things, and my grades improved and my athleticism improved. You can do that. Decide to stop telling yourself those negative stories. That helps to build the resilience. Next, practice wellness. Stress can manifest itself in the body, and as it does that, it reduces your resilience. But stress can also be created by the body. And what I mean by that is, as you don't drink enough water, as you drink a lot of caffeine, as you eat poorly, as you sleep poorly, you increase stress and cortisol in your body, and your resilience goes down. The inverse is obviously true. As you sleep more, as you drink water instead of the caffeine, reduce your sugar intake, taking care of yourself, practicing wellness, meditating, your stress level goes down, cortisol goes down, your resilience goes up. So practice wellness. And within that, I told you meditation was going to be covered throughout everything. So here we go. Within that, practicing meditation can improve your resilience. Meditating and living mindfully, it can help you to see the bigger picture. A lot of the time when we're feeling like we're not resilient, we're looking through like a soda straw. At least that's what it feels like. When you start to see the bigger picture, your resilience improves. Meditation can help with that. I mentioned this in Preparedness. I'll mention it again here. Each time you get knocked down, learn from it. Learn why you got knocked down. Learn how you got knocked down. Learn what you did wrong to get knocked down. That's going to help you to it won't prevent you necessarily from getting knocked down, but it's going to help you to get back up faster. You're going to be more resilient. In the military, after every operation, and I'm sure with you all, you do something very similar to this, we do a debrief. We call it an AAR, an after-action report. We sit down and we discuss what we did right, what we did wrong, what we could have done better, and we learn from that so that we are better the next time. We are more resilient. We get knocked down fewer times, and when we do get knocked down, we get back up faster. So learn from your past. Don't dwell in it, but learn from it. Next, try to have a sense of humor. Yes, this is Shrek. In Buds, we had a classmate of mine. He was actually a Naval Academy classmate of mine as well. We called him Shrek because he looked just like this, except for the green skin. His ears even poked out. And one of the days, we were getting physical remediation by the instructors at Buds for one reason or another. I swear there were times they just made stuff up, and I don't doubt that at all. But they're beating us, and Shrek stood up and just runs away. And we're like, all of us and the instructors just stared in dismay, like, what in the world just happened? About 2 minutes later, he comes back with 2 boxes, 24 Dunkin' Donuts. And he starts to open up the box and hand them out to the instructors, but oh no, the instructors were not having that. The instructors turned to Shrek and had him eat all 24 donuts in front of us. And if you knew this guy, you would know that wasn't a problem for him. There was a reason he had 24 donuts in his locker, and they were not for the instructors. They were for him. And he joked halfway through eating the second dozen how good the apple fritter was and wanted to make sure the instructors got their share. And we all laughed, including the instructors. And it made for a much better day. What could have been truly miserable afternoon was hilarious. So have a sense of humor. All right, now let's talk about grit. Grit is defined as firmness of character, an indomitable spirit. Again, I looked that up this morning. I confirmed it. It's still the same. Angela Duckworth, if you've ever seen her TED Talk or read her book, she further defines it as perseverance and passion for long-term goals. I define it as stick-to-itness. Stick-to-itness. All right? We often see successful people and we think they got there overnight. I'm staring at a room of successful people. Did you guys get there overnight? I'm imagining not. I'm imagining there was a lot of hard work put in. What most people don't see are those thousands of hours that we do to become successful. The early 5 a.m. runs, the late night study sessions, the parties that were not attended, the weddings that may not have been attended, the failures along the way. Successful people have grit. Grit breeds success. But successful people also have to maintain that success. It takes grit to become successful. It takes grit to maintain success. So work on developing your grit. So how does one do that? When I was younger, I ran track and cross country. We had a great team and a great coach that was like a second dad to us. I still stay in contact with him to this day. This is us in 1995 after we won our 4th state championship in cross country. And this is us just last year. We basically look the same. Well, his training wasn't easy. As a matter of fact, there were times when I downright hated the workouts. Running hills until we felt sick, sometimes literally pulling off to the side of the trail and getting sick. Running in the beautiful sunny weather of Louisiana, or the pouring rain, or sometimes even the heat, the sleet, and the snow in Louisiana. Yeah. He joked that we were like the U.S. Postal Service, that we were running whether it was raining, whether there was sleet, whether there was snow. Those miserable times, looking back, they are some of my favorite memories, not just of high school, but of life. I still look back on those as my glory days. But more importantly, they laid the foundation for so much more in my life. Additionally, they bonded us as a team. So doing hard things as an individual, doing hard things as a team, that begets being able to do more hard things. So if you want to develop grit, do hard things. Now, in doing hard things, that takes motivation. Intrinsic, the motivation from within; extrinsic, the motivation from without. And if you're able to develop that intrinsic motivation, that's what's going to last you longest. To be intrinsically motivated, though, you need to know what your why is. Going back to my cross-country days, I remember specifically one of my sophomore runs. It was just a training run, not a race. And I was miserable. I wanted to quit. And I thought, why am I doing this? What's the point? Why do I want to do this to myself? Why do I want to be a good runner? And I thought to myself, well, my dad was a runner. I want to make him proud. My mom was a nurse, and she grinded through school to be a nurse and then to provide for us later. And I wanted to make her proud. Didn't have children as a sophomore in high school, but I knew one day I would have children and I wanted to make them proud. And to do that, I was like, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to protect and defend my family name, Macaskill. That was my why. I focused on that last name through high school, in cross country, in school, and I did better. I did well. And that, years later, came into play at Buds again. In Buds, you run around with a different color helmet per phase: green first phase, blue second phase, red third phase. All of them clearly have your name printed on them. When someone quits, You go and you stand on 2 frog feet that are painted on the compound ground. You grab a rope and you ring the bell 3 times. And then you take your helmet and you walk it out onto the grinder and you put it beside the long line of other green helmets of folks who couldn't quite hack it. I would never have my last name associated with quitting in BUD/S. That was part of my why. With this in mind, there was a lot more to my why, and I get asked that quite often. What's the difference between the people who make it into BUD/S and the people who make it through BUD/S? I can tell you 3 things that I've been able to identify. First, identify your why. A lot of guys show up and they're like, why are you here? Well, because I wanted to come to BUD/S. Well, you're here. You can quit now. That's not your why. That shouldn't be your why. That's like showing up at med school and saying, I wanted to come to med school. That's not what you do, right? No, you want to serve as a doctor. You want to serve as a SEAL. You want to serve besides some of this country's best warriors on the battlefield serving this country. That's your why. You have to understand what your why is at a much greater level and then be able to see past where you are. That second thing, you're able to visualize and attaining the ultimate goal. That ultimate goal, again, serving next to those folks. You can see past that. Third, they're able to break that goal, that ultimate goal, into smaller, digestible chunks. How do you eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time. 1 bite at a time, right? When you look at that whole elephant, it's daunting. When you get to BUD/S, it's daunting. But when you break it down, you say, you know what? I want to be a SEAL serving next to the best this country has to offer on the battlefield, serving my country. Well, first you got to be a SEAL. First you got to go to BUD/S. First you got to make it through first phase, through Hell Week, through this meal, through this hour. You break it all down, it's digestible, it's manageable. You can do that. That's the third thing they were able to do. I mean, why do you think there's so many pictures in this presentation? Because I didn't memorize this whole presentation in one big chunk. I memorized each slide. Hopefully it's more digestible for you to listen to as well that way. But it's definitely more digestible for me to present that way. Sometimes, however, no matter how much you want to be intrinsically motivated, no matter how much you've tried to get your why, sometimes it's helpful to get a little push in the right direction. That extrinsic motivation. There's multiple ways to do that. I'm going to tell you 2. I've got an at-home gym. This is not my gym. I wish it was. Mine is a little dingier, a little smaller, but it does have some nice equipment in it. My kids will tell you because they like to hang on it and treat it like it's their monkey bars. I like to hang some laundry on it sometimes. There have been times when that's all it's served as, is monkey bars for my kids and laundry drying rack for my clothes. Those were times when my extrinsic and intrinsic motivation were really low. To overcome this, I went back to memories of my high school days, again, another cross-country glory day story. To get me running sometimes, when I didn't want to, I'll break out my Walkman. My Walkman with some big old headphones. Pop those headphones on, and I'll listen to motivational music. I listen to the soundtrack of The Rock, the movie The Rock, on tape, and I thought I looked so cool. I'm pretty sure I didn't, but I thought I did, and that's what mattered. Anyway, it got me going, and I remembered that used to get me going. So now, when I am struggling with motivation, I go to YouTube and I download some motivational videos, and if I'm not watching them, I will listen to them. And that gets me going, and that has helped me to get back in the gym, take the laundry off the clothes, and keep the kids from hanging off the pull-up bar, unless they're actually doing a pull-up. So I use that. We've got horses on our small farm in Colorado, and these motivational videos even help me to get out there every morning to pick up horse manure. And somehow every day, I'm surprised that there's manure to be picked up. And somehow I'm also surprised at how much there is to be picked up, and I despise doing it, but I'll listen to those motivational videos and it will help me to do it. Find some extrinsic motivation to do the things that you don't want to do, if that's what helps. I also told my wife that I would present and work horse manure into the presentation and a picture of said manure, so there you go. Now, if motivational videos are not your thing, I know they're not for everyone. My wife hates them. Maybe another extrinsic motivator is having a team. Data has shown that if you have a goal and you have someone to support you, to hold you accountable, you're much more likely to succeed. I'm sure you've all heard the saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Well, go together with a team, build a team. I've built several accountability teams, one of which is actually watching me right now with my wearable. They can see my heart rate. They can see my heart rate variability. They can see my SpO2. And sometimes in the morning, I'll get a message from them saying, hey, buddy, I see you haven't done a workout in a while. Maybe you should get on it. Or I'll see something like, hey, man, I saw your heart rate variability was pretty bad last night. Did you have one too many? And maybe on the edge of intrusive. But I'll tell you, it gets me going. It gets me going. So if you're trying to develop grit, work on developing that extrinsic and intrinsic motivation, whatever it may be. Find it for yourself. The other thing is reframing. Reframing how you feel about things, reframing how you think about things. Take what life throws at you and think about how you think about those things. Your metacognition. Realizing, you know what? Standing before a cold shower, before you get in a cold shower, you question yourself. You're like, do I really want to do this? Well, stop and think, why are you asking yourself that? Are you afraid of it? Are you afraid of being afraid? And go down that rabbit hole. Think about it. All too often in life, we ask questions, why is life so stressful? Why is work so stressful? Why is raising kids so difficult? Any of you asked those questions before? I'm sure all of you have asked those questions before. Well, a powerful reframe with those questions, a powerful reframe when you start having that metacognition and you start doubting yourself is, I get to do this. Example, with my kids, I've got 3 young ones, 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 10-month-old. There are times when I do say, parenting is stressful. And I start to doubt myself, but then I say, you know what? I get to spend time with these beautiful children, and others don't. I get to have children, others don't. This morning I was a little nervous about coming in here. I thought, why is public speaking so stressful? But I reframed it literally as I was walking down the aisle. I get to do this. I get to talk to you all this morning. I get to positively influence your lives, or at least hopefully I'm doing that. So when you start to think about something in your life a certain way and it feels negative, try to reframe it. And try specifically, I get to. Grit can also be built up by intentionally putting yourself into uncomfortable situations. An easy one, an easy example is a long run. It takes effort and discipline to train for that long run. It takes effort and discipline to do all the shorter runs, working your way up to that long run. It takes effort and discipline to set aside the time for that long run. And then when you're uncomfortable in that long run, whatever it may be, maybe it's a 5K, 10K, marathon, whatever it may be, when you're uncomfortable, push through that and realize that you're able to push through that. And then when you're uncomfortable afterwards, got all the aches and pains from that training run or the real run, don't medicate. No. Relish that pain that you're in. Understand that that pain is actually going to make you stronger. When you do a long run and then you go load up on 3 800 milligram Motrins, 1, that's terrible for you. 2, it's terrible for your mind. Push yourself past your limits, physically, emotionally, mentally. The physical one's an easy one, but there's other ways you can make yourself uncomfortable. Do it intentionally. Next, grit can be built through creating. All too often, we go home, we jump on our laptop, our smartphones, we start checking social media, scrolling through there, seeing what other people are creating, checking Netflix, watching movies that others have created, consuming. Creating puts you down in that proverbial pit of the arena, putting yourself at risk of being mocked, putting yourself at risk of failure, but also potentially reaching astounding success. Consuming is just sitting in the stands, watching, mocking, critiquing. It takes no effort, it takes no discipline. Create more, consume less. Creating takes time, effort, discipline. It takes grit, but it also makes grit. And finally, meditation, setting aside that time to do it and then doing it. How many of you in here have meditated before? All right, that's good, right on. Well, the first time you do it, I remember the first time I ever meditated, sat down for an hour-long meditation. Lasted about 17 seconds. Yeah, I think it was 16 actually. But bottom line is, it was frustrating. Took effort and discipline to work up to being able to do an hour. Setting aside the time takes effort and discipline. Doing it takes effort and discipline. I think you're catching the drift. To build grit, develop effort and discipline. Finally, let's talk about compassion. Yes, I'm a retired SEAL, and I want to talk about compassion. All right. I want to be clear here. I'm not talking about sympathy. I'm not talking about empathy. I'm talking about compassion. And these three are often used synonymously. They are not the same. Sympathy means you feel sorry. You feel sorry for someone. Empathy means you actually take on their feelings. You understand what it is they're feeling. You feel those feelings. Compassion takes it one step further. You're basically feeling empathy, but you want to do something to get that person out of what it is they're feeling. Brene Brown has an excellent talk on this, TED Talk, where she talks about sympathy is walking by a pit that somebody is in, looking down in the pit and saying, wow, that sucks that you're down there. And then empathy is walking past that pit, seeing someone down there, crawling down in that pit with them, looking up and saying, wow, yeah, this does suck. And then I'll take it one step further. Compassion is crawling down there, seeing that it does suck, feeling that it sucks, and then reaching over and helping that person out of the pit. Compassion is wanting to do something about it. But something that is rarely talked about is self-compassion. And as a leader, I would argue that that is actually almost more important than compassion for your fellow teammates. Because if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of your teammates. If you're not eating well, if you're not resting, if you're not exercising, it's going to show in your performance as a leader and as a teammate. It's the same thing as when you're flying and they tell you to put your oxygen mask on first, right? Why do they do that? It's very tempting as a parent to reach over and put your oxygen mask on for your kid first, but you may pass out in that process and then you can't take care of them. Same thing with self-compassion. If you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of your team. But here again, how does one develop it? As you'll probably guess, the common theme, meditation. Meditation can help you to start seeing things in a different way, start having more healthy thoughts about yourself and your team. But it can also make you aware of what your team needs, make you aware of what you need. Live mindfully and try meditation. Again, they're not as woo-woo as you think. These can help to develop compassion. Next, I thought I'd put in a picture of 300, since I'm talking about compassion. Acknowledge that everyone is fighting their own battles. Everyone is fighting their own battles. And give them the benefit of the doubt, and give them grace. But when I say grace, I don't mean outs. A lot of the time we disguise outs as grace. There's a difference. Give grace, but not outs. And finally, listen carefully to what is being said. And here again, we see mindfulness potentially coming into play. Listen to what is being said, but also pay attention to what is being said in other ways. Body language, habits. Maybe someone is a very high-performing individual and their performance has dropped off. Maybe sometimes they come in early and leave late, but now they're coming in late and they're leaving early. Maybe sometimes they make their own lunch and they eat at the office and now they're skipping lunch altogether. Pay attention to that. Ask the questions. Ask the hard questions. Are you okay? And then take that one step further. Pay attention to your habits, what it is you're doing every day. Listen to what is being said by your body, how you feel. Listen to what is being said, but also pay attention to what is being said in other ways. That helps to develop your compassion. Okay, so in summary, preparedness, resilience, grit, and compassion. Think about, plan, and train for the future. Be prepared. The falls are coming. Get ready for them and learn from them so you can get back up. Be resilient. Know your why. Set those overarching long-term goals. Break them down into those shorter, more digestible, more manageable chunks. Get gritty. And finally, help your people and yourself to be the best leader and best team. Be prepared. Get resilient, get gritty, and be compassionate. That is all I have for you today. Over to you guys.